begin today a new Perek, the third Perek of Masechta Avoda Zara. We're starting, it's towards the bottom of Daf Mem, Omid Beis. Okay, so this Mishnah and the Perek will be discussing the halachas that are based on the Isser, the Lav, Min HaTorah, that anything that's Avoda Zara, or Meshamshe Avoda Zara, something that was used for Avoda Zara, or Takrevis Avoda Zara, anything that was sacrificed for Avoda Zara, is Asr Bahana. And it's learned out from what it says in the pasuk, like Leisavi To'eva El Beisecha, or Layidbak B'Yodcha Mu'umma Min HaCherem, which are two psukim, two lavin, that all these things are completely Asr Bahana. So this Perek, beginning with this Mishnah, will discuss different things that it's not clear whether it is Avoda Zara or not Avoda Zara, whether it's Asr Bahana or not. Zaktei Lege Mishnah, Kol Hatzlamim, all different kinds of statues, Asurin, are Asr Bahana Mipnei Shehin Avodim Pamachas B'Shana, because they are worshipped as an Avoda Zara once a year. Divrei Rab Meir, this is Rab Meir's opinion. Okay, so as you see here clearly from the Lashon of the Mishnah itself, we're not talking about something, a statue which is an Avoda Zara. Then it wouldn't be a discussion about B'chlal. It's obvious that it's Asr Bahana, but we're talking about a statue that's not made for Avoda Zara. But nevertheless, Rab Meir says this is a statue that is served once a year as an Avoda Zara, and therefore it's Asr Bahana. Okay, we'll see more details in the Gemara. The Chachamim say, Einoi Asr, this statue is not going to be Asr, Ella, unless you see that it's a statue that has something significant to it, that it's served as an Avoda Zara. Kol sheyesh biyadei makal, if it's a statue that he has a stick in its hand, or tzipor, or a bird in its hands, or kadur, or a ball, or something round, which looks like a globe. What do they have there? Like a globe in its hands. That's something which is significant, that is a symbol, a sign that this is served as an Avoda Zara. Any statue that has anything that's in the hands of the statue, that's a sign that it's something unique and significant, that it's worshipped as an Avoda Zara. Okay, so the Gemara begins with the explanation of the first halacha in the Mishnah, the machlokes of Rab Meir and the Chachamim. What are they arguing about? What kind of statue are we talking about here? So the Gemara, what's Rab Meir saying? That this is a statue that's not Avoda Zara, but still, it's a kind of statue that is worshipped once a year. Now, if that's the case, that should be enough to answer it. Once it's in existence, it's something that was worshipped once, so then it becomes something that's an Avoda Zara. It was used for Avoda Zara, so it's Asr Bahana. So my time of the Rabbanon, why the Rabbanon argue with this and say that no, it will not be Asr unless it has a stick in its hand or something else? Why should it not be Asr if it's being worshipped once a year? So Rashi here points out that you can't say that Chachamim disagree with the Metzias. That Chachamim say that no, that this statue without having a stick in its hand is never worshipped, because that's not what Chachamim say in the Mishnah. Chachamim say it's not going to be Asr unless it has a stick. Chachamim don't say that it's not worshipped even once a year. So it's mashma, Chachamim agree that this is something which is worshipped once a year, but still, Chachamim say that it's mutter. Why is that? In the place of Rab Meir, they would worship this statue once a year. Okay, but that's not in every location. Not all over in the world where you have this kind of statue is it worshipped. In the place where Rab Meir was, it was worshipped once a year. Now, Rab Meir's opinion is that we are concerned about a minority. This is B'chlal, the opinion of Rab Meir. We had it quoted over here before in the Masechta and throughout Shas. The example for this is by the mitzvah of Yibum, where you have a katan and a ketana. The question is whether you could do the mitzvah of Yibum, because Yibum is if the woman dies and her husband had no children, but then the mitzvah of Yibum only applies if she's not an islandess and he is not a sris, meaning they both could have children. Then there's the mitzvah of Yibum. So Rab Meir says, if that's the case, by a katan and a ketana, you can't do Yibum, because maybe they can't have children. That's only a minority. Why not rely on the majority that they could have children? But Rab Meir says, no, so here's what the Gemara says. Rab Meir is concerned for the minority, and therefore Gozar Shar Mekoimais Otu Oisamokim. Rab Meir decreed and said that there's an Isser now to have anah from any statue in any place because of this minority, because of this one place where Rab Meir was, where they would worship the statue once a year. That's the Gzeira and the Chashash of Rab Meir. Rabbanon, the Leichai Miyuta. However, the Rabbanon that are not concerned for the minority, so according to them, we don't make this gzeira that in any other place where we see and we know that people don't worship these kind of statues, that it should be aser bahana because of a minority of places where people do worship it as an Avoda Zara. That's a machlekes. So there's different pirushim with the Rishonim on this. One of the pshatim that the Rishonim here say is that what's the pshat here chayish l'miyut? It's not exactly similar to the example I mentioned before by Yibum, what Rav Meir says there. So somebody trying to explain the pshat of chayish l'miyut here is you have certain places where it's clear that they worship this statue as an Avoda Zara, even once a year. That's good enough that it should become asabana. Then you have other places where it's not clear, where it's unknown whether they serve it as an Avoda Zara or not. So according to Rab Meir, since there is a place, there's a miyut in a place where they serve it as an Avoda Zara, in any other place where it's not going to be clear, in many other places in the world, you're going to have to be chayshish, misafik, because of the miyut, that there is a place that you know clearly that they serve it as Avoda Zara. That's the first step. And then, based on that, because b'negei to roiv mekaymis in the world, you're going to have to be chayshish, misafik, because of the miyut. So now, even in a place where it's clear that they're not serving it as an Avoda Zara, the Chachamim made a gzeira. Chachamim were geyser that you should not have any anah from the statue, because in Reiv Mekaymis of the world, you can't have anah from it misafik because of the miyut. That's the taich in the Gemara, but according to the Rabbanon, because in Reiv Mekaymis we're not chayshish over there misafik based on the miyut, so there's no reason to make a gzeira.
But the man is saying basically it's a seasonal Avoda Zara.
Correct. Yes, something like
seasonal.
that. Yeah, sort of. Yeah, but even that gufa that it's seasonal is also only in certain places.
Oh, so that's
only
the
in
added
immediate
part.
that only in immediate places. Correct. Yeah. The Rambam actually in the Pirush Mishnayos on the Mishnah says that the statue we're talking about over here is different statues corresponding to the sun and the stars and the moon, which is seasonal, and therefore they would serve this Avoda Zara in those times of the year. The Rambam says that point. Yeah. But this is the pshat of many Rishonim that explain here in the Gemara how this concept of chayish l'miyuta here works. Okay, now here the Gemara brings other statements of Amirayim that limit exactly the point of what our Mishnah was saying. So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel ba'andarti shemolachim shanino. Our Mishnah, what kind of statue is our Mishnah talking about? It's talking about a statue that's made of a king. According to Rashi's pshat, this is a statue of a king that died, that's made, that's placed in the cities to remember this great king. Because of the love that people had to him. And now this statue is something that usually it's made just as a statue to remember this king. But from time to time, they do worship this statue. That's the kind of statue that this is talking about, and this is the case where Rav Meir said that it's going to be aser. Rabbi Bar Bar Yochanan, the name of Rabbi Yochanan adds another point. Al Pesach Medina Shanino. What kind of a statue are we talking about? The statue that's placed at the entrance of the country. It's that kind of statue that Meir says is aser because they place it there that once in a while, once a year, maybe on the time, the day that he passed away or that he died, they would worship this statue. That's the kind of statue that Meir asered. But a statue that's not in that location, that's not in that place, even Rav Meir would agree that it's completely mutter. This is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. Tosfos brings from Rabbeinu Tam a different pshat that both Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel and Rabbi Bar Bar Yochanan, the name of Rabbi Yochanan, are actually coming to say the opposite point. They're coming to point out in what cases the Rabbanon are matter. Not in what cases Rav Meir is coming to Aser, but in what cases Rabbanon are matter. And actually Tosfos says, when it says Andarti Shel Malachim, it's talking about a melech that's still alive. There's a statue of a king that's still alive, and because this is a statue of a king that's still alive, it's not worshipped as an Avoda Zara. And also the statue that's placed on Pesach Medina, it's placed there as a symbol for that you're entering into this country, and it's just a symbol of decorating the country the way you enter, but it's not worshipped as an Avoda Zara. So Adarab, the Gemara is bringing two details when the Chachamim were matter. That's Tosfos' pshat.
What's the issue of that? It's not an Avoda.
But it is though. Here the Gemara is saying that it's worshipped as an Avoda Zara in certain places. In certain places, the Gemara said, in certain places, this kind of a statue is worshipped as an Avoda Zara once a year. Yeah, and then they made a gzeira, as the Gemara explained before, according to Rav Meir. Omar Rabbe said, Machloikis, the argument between Rab Meir and the Rabbanon is B'shal Kfarim. These statues that are in villages, there's the Machloikis, whether there's a Gzeira on this, whether there's an issue with these statues or not. Aval B'shal Krachim, but when it comes to statues that are in the large cities, Divrei HaKoil Mutarim. Over here, everybody agrees that these statues you're allowed to have a nov from them. Why? My time, L'noy Avdilahu. In the big cities, they build these statues just to decorate the streets. But it's not made at all as a statue to use as an Avoda Zara. In the villages, when you have these statues, who's paying for these statues to decorate the streets? There's no budget for such a thing in the small villages. So over there, the statues is for Avoda Zara. So the Gemara says, frek the Gemara, or the Kfarim, the statues that are found in villages, mi ikel amandama l'noy kavdilo. Is there anybody that would say that the statues found there was only made for decorative purposes, and therefore there's room to say that it's not Avoda Zara, and therefore you'll say that over here there's a machlokes whether to be geyser or not to be geyser? If it's in the villages, the kfarim vadilu miflachinu avdilahu. In the villages, since there's no budget to decorate the small villages, it's definitely made as an Avoda Zara. So Chacham would not argue in this. This is definitely something made for Avoda Zara, and it would be asar ba'ana. So Ella, therefore, the Gemara switches what Rabbi said. Ella I itma hachi itma. This is what Rabbi said. Omar Rabbi machloikis b'shal krachim. The argument between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim is regarding statues found in large cities. As the Gemara explained before, when it's in large cities, it's in a place where lav dafka they're b'chlal serving it as an Avoda Zara. It's made to decorate the streets. And over here, there's the machlokes whether they made a gzeira because of the miyut, because of minority of places that it is worshipped as an Avoda Zara. Avol b'shal kfarim, but the statues found in small villages, divrei hakayil asurim. Here, there's no reason for a gzeira. Here, this itself is being served as an Avoda Zara. Everybody would agree that it's also to have an off from it. When are these statues going to be aser? If you know that it's something that's used to serve as an Avoda Zara, and that's if it has a stick in its hands, or a bird, or a globe in its hands. So the Gemara explains what are the significance of these different things. Makal means sheroides atzmai tachas kala olam kulei kemakal, that he places himself under the control and the rulership of the entire world, like a person that rules with a stick. Now, as you see here, as Rashi points out, the Gemara uses a lashon ganai. It uses an expression saying that this entity of Avoda Zara is under the control of everything that exists in the world. But what the Gemara really means to say is that the symbol of this Avoda Zara is the fact that it holds a stick in its hands, that Avoda Zara is ruling over the world. Tzipor, the bird in the hands of this statue, shetoifes es atzmai, tachas kalaylam kulay kitzipor, that he grabs himself in his hands and he places himself below the entire world like a bird. And again, the Gemara is using this expression. What it means is that it's like a bird that flies above and it controls over the entire world. And kader, the kader that it holds in its hands, like a globe, that he grabs himself below the world like a globe. So it means that he holds the globe in his hands, that this Avoda Zara controls the entire world. So when you see these different things in his hand, that's a symbol for Avoda Zara. Tana, in a Braisa we learned, that later on they added these other things in the statue that is an indication that this is Avoda Zara. Sayif, if it's holding a sword, a tara, a crown, a tabas, or a ring. And the Gemara explains that these three things, in the beginning, it wasn't aser, according to Chachamim, that it's definitely being worshipped as Avoda Zara. But then later, they saw that this is being made for Avoda Zara. So what did they think in the beginning? Sayif, the statue that has a sword in its hand, Meikar Savar, in the beginning they thought, Listim Ba'alma, that it's just a symbol of a bandit, that a statue of a bandit that has a sword in his hands, but it's not a symbol for Avoda Zara. But in the end they realized, or they saw that what is this being used for? That he kills himself and he places himself below the entire world, which again is the expression that means that he has the sword in his hand. Avoda Zara, the power of this Avoda Zara, it has the sword to kill the whole world. Similar regarding the crown. Atare, a statue with a crown, Meikar Savor, that he's holding a crown in his hands. That Gadol Kalili Balma. It's just a statue of a person that makes crowns, but it's not a symbol for Avoda Zara. But in the end, they saw that ka'atare lemelech, that this is like a crown that's used for a king. The original girsa in the Gemara, as it was brought here on the side, was lekelev. That it's just like the Gemara uses a derogatory term before regarding all of Avoda Zara here as well. It says atare lekelev. And it was taken out, and the prince, and it replaced it with melech. But it's supposed to be kelev. And in the Rashi as well, there's a Rashi and there's kelev. That kelev really means melech. Okay, then tabas, the same thing with a ring. Meikaresavor ishtaima ba'alma. The ring is it's a signet ring. It's a signet ring that shows that you could send a shliach that has the signet ring, but it doesn't show an Avoda Zara. But then they saw that this is being used to worship as an Avoda Zara. That he, the Avoda Zara, he can sign away the entire world to death, and that's the Avoda Zara. Yeah. So, okay, according to the pshat of the Gemara here, Chachamim, what they're saying, it doesn't seem to really fit with the point that the Gemara spoke about before, where it said that the statues that we're talking about here in the Mishnah is Andarti Shal Malachim, statues of kings, whether a king that already died or a king that's still alive. Rashi and Tosfos here in the pshat of what it brings from the Braisa, according to Rashi's pshat, it seems to be speaking about statues that are made not necessarily for the king that died. Statues where it wasn't clear what this statue shows. And therefore, in the beginning, they didn't ask it. According to the Chacham, it wasn't asked as Avoda Zara. Later on, they realized what it's for. They asked it. But some Rishonim say that even here in this Braisa, it still is statues for a king. Elamai, it's the statue of a king that in the beginning they thought it doesn't refer to the king as an Avoda Zara. But then later on, they began worshipping this statue of this king that died with an intention of serving it as an Avoda Zara. Rav Shimon Gamliel says that when you have a statue that's holding anything in its hands, that shows on an Avoda Zara. Tana and a Braisa we learned afilu tzirayir, even if the statue is made with holding a pebble in its hands, or afilu kisim, even a small piece of a splinter of wood that it holds in its hands. Whatever it is, it shows in some symbol of Avoda Zara. By Rav Ashi. So based on this, Rav Ashi asks, Tafas biyodei tzaya mao. If the statue is made holding tzaya, holding the waist in its hands. So what's the halacha then? Do you say that this is a sign of Avoda Zara or not? Do I say, what is this a sign of? Kula alma zilu ba'pei tzaya. It's a sign of Avoda Zara, symbolizing that the entire world is nothing to it like tzaya. Or maybe hu miu dezil ba'api kula alma kitzaya. What it's saying is that he himself is like tzaya. So Adarab, it's pointing out that it's the opposite of it. It's not an union of Avoda Zara. So that this remains a question if this is in the hands of the statue, whether it's Avoda Zara or not, according to Rav Shimon Gamliel. A person that finds broken pieces of statues. You're allowed to have anah from these broken pieces. So Rashi here brings the pshat that the Gemara says in the end that the reason why it's mutter is because it's a sfek sveika. Number one, because we're speaking about statues, and as the Gemara pointed out before, we're talking about kind of statues that it's not even clear b'chlal that it's ever being served as an Avoda Zara. It could be in places where it was never served b'chlal. As Rab Meir says, there's some places, a minority of places that it's served. So that's the first suffix. Was it ever served b'chlal as Avoda Zara? Then there's another suffix. You see it now broken. The halacha is Avoda Zara that a guy was mevatel, that a guy said that he doesn't want to serve it anymore as an Avoda Zara, and he breaks it. It's not an Avoda Zara anymore. You could have a anah from it. This is a specific halacha regarding a guy. We'll see it more about it later in the Masechta. So over here, when you see it broken, you don't know why it broke. Maybe the guy broke it, and therefore now he was mevatel it. So because of the sfek sveike, it's going to be mutter. That's what the Gemara says later. But as we'll see in the Gemara in the beginning, the Gemara has actually another pshat why it would be mutter. But in the end of the Gemara says this svara that Rashi brings there, sfek sveike. Matzah tavnis yad, or tavnis regel. You find from the statue, you find a shape of a hand or a foot, hare'elu asurin, then this will be asur, mipnei shekayetze ben nevad, because something like this is still worshipped as an Avoda Zara. Dr. Gemara Amar Shmuel. So Shmuel said, Afila shivrei avodas kachavim. When it said in the Mishnah that it's broken pieces of statues, that it's going to be mutter, it's not only broken pieces of statues, even a broken Avoda Zara. In other words, not like different than the pshat that I said before that Rashi brings from the end of the Gemara. Even if it's clearly an Avoda Zara, you know for a fact that it was served as an Avoda Zara. So there's no suffix about that. There's only one suffix now here. You see that it's broken. He said, so could be the guy broke it and he was mevatlit, could be not. That suffix is enough to say that it would be mutter. We will accept the fact that the guy broke it, even if we didn't see, we don't know, but we accept the fact that the guy broke this Avoda Zara, and therefore it'll be mutter to serve this. According to Taisvis, and it's mashma from Rashi as well, this is also based on the continuation of the Gemara. As we'll see soon, the Gemara will say that when Avoda Zara broke on its own, it also becomes bottle. The guy is mevatlet when it breaks on its own even, and therefore it becomes mutter. So therefore when you see shivrei avodas kechavim, it'll be mutter.
We know when the Yid went into Eretz Yisrael, the Shabbat, they smashed Avoda Zara.
Yeah,
so
correct.
once they smashed them, they...
but when a Yid is mevatl Avoda Zara, it doesn't become bottle. Only when a guy is mevatl Avoda Zara. We'll see more in the Masechta later about this.
Did it to his father's place? It's not bottle? I've read when he smashed all the...
When a Yid is mevatl Avoda Zara, it doesn't become bottle. We'll see later in the Masechta halacha.
When the Yid did, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. So the Gemara now asks from what it says in the Mishnah. V'ho'anan tanan. But what does it say in the Mishnah? It doesn't say shivrei avodas kechavim. It says in the Mishnah shivrei tzlamim, broken tzlamim, which atzelem is these statues where it's not even clear b'chlal that it was ever worshipped as an avodah zara. How could Shmuel say even those broken avodah zaras that you know for a fact it was avodah zara? Answers the Gemara, hu adin dafila shivrei avodas kechavim. Really, the Mishnah it means to say that including a broken avodah zara will also be mutter to have a navram. The reason it's saying the example of broken statues, because this is necessary to clarify what it means to say in the Sefer. The Sefer it says, you see the statue that's only a hand or only a foot, that it's still going to be awesome because something like this could be worshipped as an Avodah Zara. So therefore, over here, regarding this case, it's necessary for the Mishnah to clarify. You would think, if the Mishnah in the beginning would say, Shivrei Avodah Zara, so you would think that the halacha of the Sefer, that when you see a hand or a foot, that it's only if it comes from an Avodah Zara, then it's going to be Yasser. So therefore the Mishnah says, no, Shivrei Tzlamim, even from statues, where it's not even clear that it was ever served as an Avodah Zara, still, when it comes to a hand or a foot, it's still going to be Yasser. That's why it's mentioning Dafket Slomim, so because it's relevant to show you the Chumrah of the Sefer. That the Chumrah of the Sefer, by the Shivrei Yad and Shivrei Regel, is even just by Slomim, by statue, not only by Avodah Zara Mamish. Okay, now the Gemara brings back the Mishnah itself and asks on Shmuel, Tanan. So what did the Mishnah say here? Matzah tavnis yad v'tavnis regel, that if he finds a statue of a hand or a foot, so the reason why it's asur, because this is something that is worshipped as an avodah zara. But now the question is, how do we understand what the Mishnah is saying? Amai, why should it be asur? V'ha shvarim nino. It's something that was broken. The way that the Gemara understands right now is that we're talking over here about a hand or a foot that was broken from a statue. So if it's broken from a statue, why should it be asur? So in essence, the Gemara is really asking a contradiction in the lashon of the Mishnah itself. The Mishnah starts sort of saying, Shivrei tzlamim is mutter. Shivrei tzlamim means any piece of a statue which is broken. And then afterwards it says, no, but if it's a hand or a foot, it's going to be asur. But that means even if it's broken off. So, but if it's broken, you just said that it's asur. Now, why is this a question specifically on Shmuel? The way Taisus explains, the reason why the Gemara is asking this question on Shmuel is because without Shmuel, I would say that the first part of the Mishnah is speaking about Slomim, about these statues, which is not even clear b'chlal if it was served as an Avodah Zara. The second part of the Mishnah, when it says Tavnis Yad, Tavnis Regel, and it says in the Mishnah that they're awesome with Neshek Yetz ben Nevad, it's talking about a broken piece that came from an actual Avodah Zara. So when it comes from an actual Avodah Zara, there the Mishnah is saying that even the broken pieces are going to be mutter. That's how you would answer the two parts of the Mishnah. But according to Shmuel, you can't make that distinction. Because in the Reisha of the Mishnah, it's also talking about even a broken piece from Avodah Zara Mamish. So if so, the question is, how do we understand what's this pshat here in the Sefer when it says that a broken piece from a Yad or a Regel, that it would be asur? So Tergem Shmuel explained this, Ba'oimdin al Basisan, that in the Sefer, when it says a broken hand, a broken piece, it's a hand or a foot that's on a basis, it's on a base or on a pedestal, meaning it's still something that is served as an Avodah Zara, even after it's broken. So therefore, this is different than stam a broken piece. A broken piece is you see it's a broken piece, it's not useful anymore. Here, this is something which is still on a base. Or according to Taisus, it means it wasn't broken ever b'chlal. It was l'chtchila made as a statue on a base. and therefore it's that's the case where the Mishnah is saying that it's going to be aser. Itmar, we learned the following machlekes regarding an Avoda Zara that was broken. Avodas gechavim shenishtabra me'elel. And Avoda Zara that the guy wasn't mevatel, didn't break it. It was broken on its own. Rabbi Yochanan says asura. This is still aser bahana. It's not mevatel the name of Avoda Zara from this entity. If it got broken, even on its own, it becomes mutter. It's still going to be aser the holy batla. The guy was never mevatel the Avoda Zara, so the name of Avoda Zara is still on it. So it's aser ba'no. Why is it mutter? Because mistame betula mevatele. Because if the Avoda Zara broke, we could assume that the guy in his heart is mevatel he's not worshiping this Avoda Zara, because the guy says to himself, Iyo nafshe loy atzla, if the Avoda Zara can't save itself and it broke, lahu gavra matzle. So to myself, to this person, this Avoda Zara will save me. So he doesn't serve this Avoda Zara after it breaks. That's what you could assume. So therefore, it's going to be bottled. Right? And the Rishonim actually point out that this is even in a case that the guy didn't even see that his Avoda Zara broke. He's away, he's out of town, he doesn't even know that his Avoda Zara broke. We could assume this because when a guy makes his Avoda Zara, he's not even sure this Avoda Zara will be beneficial to him. And Yichatchila makes it only as long as he sees that it stands. But the moment it breaks, it doesn't have the name of Avoda Zara anymore.
You can't ask the goy, huh?
Oh, so let's see what the Gemara asks on this. So the Gemara Eisver Rabbi Yochanan Reb Shimon ben Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan asks, Shimon ben Lakish, from what it says, seemingly clearly in the pasuk, it says that there was an Avoda Zara, that the V'reish Dogain, this Avoda Zara called Dogain, the head of it, Oshtei Kapes Yadav, and it's the palms of its hands, Krusais got cut down, the gaimer, it fell down on the floor. Oksev, and it says in the pasuk, Al Kain lo Yidrchu Kain Dogain the gaimer, that the priests of this Avoda Zara of Dogain would not step on the threshold where this Avoda Zara fell down because of the Avoda Zara that's there. So we see that even after this Avoda Zara broke onto the ground, onto the threshold, they still treated it as an Avoda Zara, and even more, that they said that the threshold should not be, no one should step there because of the Avoda Zara. So the Gemara answers, Rav Shimon ben Lakish said, Misham Raya, you're bringing me a proof from there? Adarabba, over there, what do you see over there? Hasam, over there, what they said is, after this Avoda Zara broke and it fell on the threshold, Shemanichen es adagain, vayvdir es hamiftam. They left the Avoda Zara from this statue of the Dagon itself, and they said that now we're going to serve the threshold as an Avoda Zara. Because the Amri Hachi, they said then as follows, Shafkei isare l'Dagon, the power of the Avoda Zara, left this statue of Dagon, and va'asa esav le alamiftam, and it fell to the threshold because now the power of the Avoda Zara is on the threshold. So they're serving the threshold. But the Avoda Zara, the statue, Taka, was bottled when it broke on its own. So therefore, so you see over here, when it breaks on its own, it's not an Avoda Zara anymore. Okay, now, Eisvei, the Gemara asks, and now from the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, if you find broken pieces of a statue, so again, the statue is something that you don't even know for sure that it was served as an Avoda Zara. So then it's going to be mutter. So what do you learn from our Mishnah? If it says only a statue, but if it would be broken pieces from an Avoda Zara, then asur, then it would be aser. Why would it be aser? Probably because even after it breaks, because it was served as an Avoda Zara, it could have broken on its own. And if it breaks on its own, it still has the name of Avoda Zara on it. Right? So this, the Gemara is being medayik, not like what Shmuel said before. Shmuel before said, when it said in the Mishnah, Shivrei Tzlamim, it includes even Shivrei Avoda Zara. But now here the Gemara is being medayik, that if you learn the Mishnah literally that it says broken statue, by a statue I say, you don't even know if it was served as an Avoda Zara. But over here, if it's something that was served as an Avoda Zara, even after it broke, it's still going to be aser. You don't know how it broke. So this is a kasha of Shimon ben Lakish. You see that if it breaks on its own, it'll still be an Avoda Zara. So the Gemara says, no, that's not how you have to be medayik from the Mishnah. And the diak of our Mishnah is not that if it's broken from Avoda Zara, then it'll be aser. Shmuel already said before that even if it's from Avoda Zara, it'll be mutter. Rather, what our Mishnah is coming to clarify, following up from the first Mishnah of the Pedic, that if it would be the statues itself, it would be aser. Even if you don't know that this statue is served as an Avoda Zara, or even if you know for a fact actually that it's not served as an Avoda Zara, because the stomach of Rab Meir, this Mishnah here is following up from the previous Mishnah, and it's going like Rab Meir's opinion that a stam tzelem, we're geyser because of the miyut, and we treat it mamish like an avodah zara. And therefore, by the statues, it's going to be also. But if it's a broken statue, over here, it's going to be mutter. That's the pshat. That's the way I have to understand our Mishnah. Okay, but now the Gemara goes back and looks at this Mishnah again, and it actually asks on Rabbi Yochanan from the Mishnah. It says the Gemara of Rabbi Yochanan, but now we can ask on the Mishnah on Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Again, what did Rabbi Yochanan say? That as a Avodah Zara that breaks on its own is still going to be an Avodah Zara. Says the Gemara, Mid Rab Meir Nishma Lahu L'Rabbana. From what we see now in our Mishnah, as we explained, that our Mishnah goes according to Rab Meir, we should also understand what the halacha should be according to the Rabbanon. What do we see from Rab Meir? What is Rab Meir's opinion? Rab Meir basically says that every statue that you don't know for sure that it was served for Avodah Zara, that we're geyser on it, that it should be treated just like a statue that's mamish Avodah Zara. And then what does Rab Meir say? When you have a statue, when it breaks, it becomes mutter. So if so, we should learn out from Rab Meir to say the same thing according to the Rabbanon. Because Lab Amar Rab Meir, didn't Rab Meir say Tzlamim Asurim, that every statue is Asur. Every statue, we consider it like it was mamish served as an Avodah Zara. And nevertheless, he says, Shivrei Tzlamim, when it breaks, mutarim, then it becomes mutter. So if so, the Rabbanon, according to the Rabbanon, so the Rabbanon can disagree with Rab Meir. The Rabbanon say that for every statue, we can't treat it like it's mamish and Avodah Zara. But according to the Rabbanon, what if it's a statue that you know for sure it's Avodah Zara, like the Rabbanon themselves said. The Rabbanon said that if it's a statue that has a stick in its hands, so you know then that it's Avodah Zara. So Avodas Kechavim Nami, if it's mamish and Avodah Zara, he asura. If it's still a statue intact, then it's going to be aser. But when it breaks, it should be mutter, similar to what Rab Meir says. So the point is that you still see here, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you can now ask on his opinion, and you see here that once an Avodah Zara breaks, it becomes mutter. Just everybody according to their standard. Rab Meir's standard is every tzelem is like an Avodah Zara, and the Rabbanan standard is that only certain slomim is Avodah Zara mamish. But the point is, once it breaks, it becomes mutter. So you see, why is it mutter? Because you're relying on the fact that it doesn't make a difference how it broke. If the guy broke it or broke on its own, either way, it's going to be mutter. So therefore, this is a question of Rabbi Yochanan that says that if it broke on its own, that it's still going to be aser. So the Gemara answers, no, you can't make this comparison. You can't learn this out from Rab Meir to the Rabbana. Why? And here the Gemara brings the svara that Rashi mentioned in the Mishnah about svek sveike. Hachi ashta, there's no comparison. Hasam, when it comes to a statue which not necessarily was ever worshipped as an Avodah Zara, Eimer Avodam, Eimer Lo Avodam. I could say that it was served as an Avodah Zara, it could be not. So true, Rab Meir held when the statue is intact, we made a gzeira not to have a gnaw from it, but the fact is, though, that the statue itself is something that may have never been served as an Avodah Zara. But and even if it was served as an Avodah Zara, now that you see it broken, it could be the guy went and broke it. So therefore, because of this svek it's going to be mutter. However, but if it's something that you know for a fact that it was a statue that was served as an Avodah Zara, vadei avdua. So then this is a statue that was definitely served as an Avodah Zara. So mi yemid the butler. When you see it now broken, who says the guy broke it? Who says he was mevatel this Avodah Zara? If so, have a suffix uvadai. So basically, you have here Avodah Zara that was a vadai Avodah Zara, and now you see it broken. It's a suffix. Who broke it? Whether the guy broke it or not. And the klal is ve'ein suffix moitzi midei vadai. When you have a suffix, it can't take out from a definite status that this statue was a vadai Avodah Zara, and therefore you can't. It's still going to be aser bahana. This is the pshat in the Mishnah according to Rabbi Yochanan, and therefore you can't compare the tzelem. This Mishnah is talking about a tzelem, and you can't compare it to a statue which was mamish Avodah Zara. So here's the point that the Gemara is saying that it's a sveike, and this is based on the concept that if it's a vadai Avodah Zara, then I say ein safek moitzi midei vadai.
Even the broke by itself is also not mevatel, but not sure if the goy did it.
Correct. This is Rabbi Yochanan. Only if the guy was mevatel. Yeah. Okay, now, but the Gemara asks on this point. On the last point to reflect the Gemara, ve'ein safek moitzi midei vadai. A case that when you have a suffix now, will this suffix not take out of the vadai status that it had before, that it was in Avodah Zara? Taisus over here, the Rishayim explain the pshat in the Gemara's question. that usually it's a davar pashit that a suffix cannot take out from a vadai status. But the question that the Gemara is asking over here is that we're talking over here about a suffix that it's something which is rogel. It's common that this should happen. When you have a 50-50 suffix and you had a vadai status before, a 50-50 suffix cannot change a vadai status of what you had definitely before. But over here, when you have this broken Avoda Zara, it's very likely that it broke because the guy broke it. There's these statues that were made nice, big, strong statues. It didn't break Bepashtus on its own. It's likely, very likely that the guy broke it, and still the Gemara is saying that suffix will not be Meitzim Midei Vadai. So the Gemara is asking, such a kind of suffix, will it not be Meitzim Midei Vadai? Well, Tanya, there's a brayso that says Chavish Shemeis, a chaver, which is a person that is trusted, that he always accepts trumas and maisres, and he dies. And he leaves a drawer full of produce, and we don't know if it was the maisres were separated or not. Even if it was something that was today, it was brought in today, we can accept, there's an assumption that he was misakin, he separated the trumas and maisres. The question is, here there's a definite status that this was produce that was tevel, which means untied when the trumas and maasros were not separated. Safek asrinu, safek lo yasrinu. And now there's a suffix. Possibly this chaver separated the trumas and maasros. Yeah, so it's likely that he did separate because he's a chaver, but it's still only a suffix. The kaasti suffix, this kind of suffix where it's likely that he did separate the trumas and maasros, and wait similei vadai. And it takes out of the status that it was tevel. It was definitely tevel. So we should apply the same thing over here regarding the Avoda Zara that broke. And this is the Gemara and the Hossam by the case of the chaver that died. Vadai uvadai hu. There's a vadai that it was tevel, but now it's a vadai that he did separate the trumas and maasros. The vadai esrino. He definitely separated it. K'der Rab Chanina chuzah. Now Rab Chanina chuzah chazaka al chaver. There's a presumption regarding a chavish that he does not leave something from out of his hands that is not taken care of properly. So over here, if he brought it into the house, he definitely immediately took off the trumas and maasros, and if he didn't, he would have notified his family before he passed away, and if he did not, it must be that he definitely separated trumas and maasros. So it's a vadai. It's not considered to be a suffix at all. V'bay seime, or another pshat the Gemara says about this, suffix usafiku. The Gemara started off saying that over here this is a vadai tevel. It's not vadai tevel. It's only a suffix if this produce was chayiv and maasros or not. Why? Because because here this produce that's in the house, it could have been brought into the house based on what Rabbi Shia said, that there's a situation where you bring the produce into the house and it's not chayiv and trumas and maasros min ha'Torah. The Amar Rabbi Shia said, "Ma'irim adam al tvuasai." A person can do a trick, sort of, with his produce, or machnisa, and he brings it into the house, b'maitz shala, with the peels, with the chaff. Kedei shetehei behemtoi eicheles, because then his behemoth can eat from it, upeturim and a and it'll be potter from ma'aser. So the halach of this Indian is, Rashi here brings that in order for anything to be chayiv and ma'aser min ha'Torah, there are two conditions. Number one, in the miruach, after they separated the chaff and it's made in a nice pile and it's prepared to use, that's one condition. And the other one is has to come into the house, has to be brought into the house and dafka from the main door, penei abayis. When it's brought into the house, prepared, then it's going to be chayiv and maasros. If one of these details are missing, it's not going to be chayiv. And actually, if it's brought into the house before it was completed and done properly, and then you want to complete the work, you want to prepare it that it should be ready to use, after it's brought into the house, it's too late. It's not going to be chayiv and maasros min ha'Torah anymore. And therefore, min ha'Torah, it's potter from maasros, but midrabanan, it's still chayiv, and therefore midrabanan, you're not supposed to eat from it boy from kva, permanently, from a regular meal, but you can eat from it boy from arai. Temporarily you can eat from it, or eat from the behemoth. The behemoth is always like arai. The behemoth you could feed from this produce that's brought into the house this way. So since this is something which is not chayiv and trumas and maasros min ha'Torah, it's only chayiv in the rabbanon. So this is it's a suffix if it was b'chal chayiv min ha'Torah. And even for the fact that midrabanan it was chayiv and maasros, and it's also to eat from it from kva, but we rely on the fact that he's a chaver. That he's a chaver and he definitely separated the maasros, and therefore over here you can rely on this. This is not a case of suffix meitzim midei vadai. There's a suffix if it's b'chal chayiv and maasros min ha'Torah, and for the chiv midrabanan you can rely on this, and therefore it's mutter to eat from it.